So remember that the last piece of control is that we are trying to move our kids towards interdependence. All right? Meaning that we are not going to install control buttons. We're going to get down on our knees. Remember when you were childproofing a house and the kid was 2 years old? You got down on your knees, right? Because you look at a boiling pot and you think, why would I ever want to knock this over? But if you're down on your knees, you understand that it just looks like smoke and noise that you don't understand. Let me see it. What do we need to do with our adolescents? As they ask for new milestones in their lives, we have to get down on our knees, see it from their perspective, and when we see it from their perspective, map out the journey, break the journey into multiple small steps, and let them achieve one step at a time. Got it? And then the kids will want to come back to you because they know that you're not trying to control them, you're trying to get them to the next step. All right. Half an hour left. This is exactly where I wanted to be able to spend 30 minutes on what might be the most important thing here. As educators, if you are a health teacher, I want you to hear how this can be incorporated into your health class. If you are a science teacher, or a psychology teacher, or a social studies teacher, I want you to hear how this can be incorporated. If you are an art teacher, a music teacher, I want you to hear how you are present. If you are a librarian, I want you to see your role here. If you are a kindergarten or a first grade teacher, I want you to see those strategies that you can begin putting into place very early on, because I want to go out of business. Kim, I am guessing you want to go out of business, right? And if we really create a community that that is trauma-informed and raises kids with a wide repertoire of positive coping strategies, I'm going out of business, and I couldn't be happier. Because at its core, resilience is about learning to cope in a positive way with life's inevitable stressors. Here's the model. Stress is incredibly uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable that it makes you sweat, it makes you smell, it makes you not be able to think clearly. It's so uncomfortable, you got to do something about it. Doing something about it is called coping. There are positive ways of coping, and there are negative ways of coping. And the biggest mistake you can make on this diagram is to look at it and go, well, the negative ways, they must not work. No, the negative ways work fantastically. Better and easier than the positive coping strategies. This is drugs. Drugs are a great way of coping. Sex, out of the context of a relationship, one person to another just because it feels good. Great. Punching someone in the face. Amazing. Cutting. You want to know how I feel, Dr. Ken? It's not that I was abused as a kid. It's not that I was raped last year. You want to know how I feel? Here it is. I'm in charge of when, where, and how I feel the pain. Great. Running away. Fantastic. But the reason they're in the negative box is that they create so much more stress, and they destroy lives, and they destroy communities. So what our goal is to take kids engaging in these strategies, and without shaming them or stigmatizing them, to invite them in a healing process to replace them with positive coping strategies. And our real goal is to take the kindergarten teachers and the parents and have it so the kids are raised with such a wide repertoire of positive coping strategies that the path of least resistance is right there. But now what we have to do is we have to come up with a coping plan. So what I'm going to give you is the American Academy of Pediatrics Coping Plan. I created it in 2006. Based on the literature. The literature says this. It says that there are two large categories of coping. There is engaging a problem, and within engagement, you can engage it emotionally, which is about reaching other people, or you can engage it by taking on the problem. And what we want is kids who have both strategies, because if you only engage people, the problem's right there to bite you in the butt an hour later. If you only engage the problem, then you're not taking advantage of the power of human connection. But you also need to disengage. If you don't have kids who actively know how to disengage from a problem, then they will find drugs, which have been around for at least 6,000 years of human history, destroying families and communities. So we have to give them other ways of disengagement. So this is a stress management plan for teenagers, but that starts in childhood and might even apply to us. And for what it's worth, it builds a great college resume. Not to a Harvard resume, but just a well-balanced human being. So the first thing we want to do is have some problem-focused strategies. First one is make the problem manageable. What that means is that as long as kids see things as a mountain, they will fall at the base and they'll say, I can't get there. They'll look up at the top and say, I can't even imagine getting started. What we want to do instead is help kids understand that every mountain is just a series of hills. And sometimes you don't look all the way up. Sometimes what you do is you just step up on the first hill, look straight ahead, and once you're securely stationed on the first hill is when you look up. And when you look up, that apex is no longer going to seem as overwhelmingly scary as it did before because you're already partway there. This is about making timelines. This is about making lists. This is about taking social situations and breaking them up into small pieces. Everybody hates me. Everybody, I have no friends. What about Lisa? I thought she was your friend. Oh yeah, well there's Lisa. You help them just break things up. What you've seen so far is a couple of the techniques that I use. And Reaching Teens has a lot more, but in terms of breaking mountains into hills, right? That's what the ladder diagram was. That is an overwhelming situation. How do I make my future come true versus die? Break it up into hills. That is what the decision tree was with the girl with the knife. Break it up into hills. Second, active avoidance. If you work with kids who are using drugs and you put them out in the community, you try to make it so that they're less likely to be triggered with their stressors. And in drug lingo, we talk about people, places, and things, which are those triggers you have. Why would you wait? And then we tell them how to avoid them. Why would you wait until a kid uses drugs to teach them about active avoidance? Why would you not teach every kid that life is about conserving energy? That's what it's about. And then you figure out what you can change, and you figure out what you need to let go, and but before you get that, that's actually number 3, sorry, that you figure out what you can avoid altogether. So if there's a bully in school, by all means, go to the principal. If there is a bully in your neighborhood who only acts up when you travel around his house, then just don't go there. The man who wins every fight is the man who never shows up. Next, letting some things go. In the world of resilience theory, there's a lot of people who love optimism, all right? I'm not one of them. How does an optimist see this bottle? Half full, which might mean that you interpret it as good enough. Furthermore, an optimist feels as if they can solve a lot of problems which in fact they can't necessarily solve, and they end up wasting money. Time and effort. How does the pessimist see this bottle? Which means that they might never even get onto the playing field. Here is how I want you to see this bottle, or your kids. This bottle is filled to here. And you know what? I worked out this morning, so I'm really thirsty. Dawn, can you get me another bottle? Or, you know what? This is plenty good enough. Thank you. What we need is for people to make realistic assessments of situations and to have hopeful dispositions about what they can change. If you talk to people who have been through the worst of times, here is what they have in common. They have learned how to conserve their energy. My mother-in-law is a 4'6" lady. She's a little bit over 90 years old now. She's number 1,064 in Auschwitz. So that's the first train in. She saw her entire family killed in front of her. She is the most loving person you can imagine. And you ask her how it is you survive hell, and she was there for 3.5 years. So her adolescence, my kids think they have problems, right? Her adolescence was spent in Auschwitz. Anyways, I won't give you the details. But if you ask her how she survived, here's what she says. You figure out what you can change, and you fight like hell. You figure out what you can't change, and you let it go, or you become the animal that they say that you are. On the walls of every recovery program, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. It matters.